you can't check your six. It's kind of like, taking a screwdriver to a gunfight. What's happening? Just like on top.
Hello, welcome to episode 3 of Steven Seagal, or I think that's what we're calling it. Yeah. Welcome to episode 3 of Steven Seagal, Marked for Death. The post-sophomoric, I don't know the term for that, the third movie in the illustrious career of Steven Seagal, noted Aikido expert / actor, /
jazz musician / sports drank.
/ human trafficker, allegedly. I don't know if it's proven in a court of law. I will not be sued for libel or slander. In Marked for Death, Drug Enforcement Administration agent and decorated soldier.
You're not going to introduce yourself?
Oh. In Marked for Death, Zach describes the plot.
Aaron is here to comment.
I'm Hans.
DEA agent and decorated soldier John Hatcher. I will stop reading from Wikipedia now. Allegedly, John Hatcher, his partner is killed while they're in Colombia. His partner's killed, like every partner in every Steven Seagal movie is.
This one was pretty quick.
This one is pretty quick. I think it gets quicker, but this one is quick.
Yeah.
When he returns home, he sees his family. He goes to a high school where he sees his friend Keith David. Boy howdy, if there's an actor who deserves better than this. Keith David, his U.S. Army buddy. They're at a club or a bar. A gun fight breaks out.
Well, there was drug dealing in the beginning that got him all riled up, right?
Yes, yeah, that they're witnessing.
Or no, it got
No.
Keith David riled up. He was just telling him to ignore it.
Right. Because he's saying, it's the same thing no matter where you go. Take one down, another one pops up. This time it's Jamaicans. So if you thought it was racially weird before, oh boy, how it gets racially weird this one. The Jamaican posses, as they are known. And the film seems very proud of the fact that they know the term posses.
Which is an Old West term.
Yeah. They seem very proud of their crazy stereotyping in this movie.
Legitimately, when I was watching the newscast, I was just like, this is what every parent who watches cable news just thinks every city looks like. This lady on the news being like, these posses kill approximately 50,000 people a year selling their drugs. The main bad guy, whose name is Screwface because he has a screw for a face.
I don't know why he's
do a
Screwface.
I never figured that out. He's got two heads and 4 eyes. They do a drive-by shooting on our beleaguered main character's house
several times,
or his sister's house. His niece is critically injured, and he kind of threatens a doctor into giving her good medical care, and then that's never brought up again.
No.
They meet. Oh my god, he's not even necessarily a major character. But they encounter. There's a gangster named Jimmy Fingers.
I forgot about Jimmy Fingers.
Jimmy Fingers is great. I have to give props to this movie because they do not make a joke at Jimmy Fingers' expense. They are better than me. Because later on, when we find Jimmy Fingers with a prostitute, I said, "Oh, that's who Jimmy Fingers," and I thought that was pretty funny. My humor is sub-Seagal in this case.
Jimmy Fingers spends that entire scene in like a wife beater and like tiny briefs.
Oh my! It's an outfit. It's not the worst outfit in the movie, but it's an outfit. But the Jamaican gangs, they're doing just straight up African black magic. I don't actually know if magic is real or not in this.
I contend that in this movie,
everyone
magic is real.
Everyone kind of seems to contend with the fact that magic is real. Like, that's just accepted.
Yes, because they get, like, the Hispanic woman who does, like, some Santeria kind of, like, blood sacrifice thing. And Screwface, spoiler alert, one of the Screwfaces feels it. And so sacrifices her to, like, a voodoo ritual thing. It's unclear.
They get in a gunfight at a jewelry store. There's car chases. Fun and action is had by all. Using fake construction equipment. They trap Seagal and Molotov cocktail his car. I thought that part was very funny because, like, you see the truck approaching for like a solid 2 minutes, and Seagal just kind of looks generally annoyed, but just kind of lets them crush his car and trap him.
Yep.
That's a nice car. It's a what? I don't remember the year, but it's a Mach 1.
I love the cars in these movies. That's something I will say.
Okay,
Even
yeah,
the bad cars, just every car in this movie is great.
Yeah, pretty much in all these movies, the cars are awesome.
Just because I love the boxy, crappy, like, you know, Chevys of the 90s or whatever. Like, they're great. Like, every single car, the good ones and the bad ones are just amazing.
Like, they didn't cheap out on the cars. Like, this movie had a budget of $12 million. A lot of it went to cars.
Probably.
And sugar glass.
A lot of sugar glass. In this episode's version of he has to work against the system, but also the people in the system are actually pretty chill with what he does. There's a cop who says, no, I've been after him for 5 years. We're not just going to go, you know, bloodthirsty vigilante and take him down. And Seagal says, but like, come on. And the guy goes, all right, you got me. And he joins in on his bloodthirsty rampage. In this one, Steven Seagal has 2 black friends. He's making progress here. Spoiler alert, second partner death later on in this movie.
Equally preventable.
Yeah, I mean, but someone has to die. One of his friends has to die to help motivate him.
One of the millions of bullets has to land in a body somewhere.
Honestly.
And they can't all miss.
Like, and contractually, you cannot hit Seagal. You cannot harm him, so it has to be a partner.
That doesn't ring true in number 4.
Well, we'll get there. In very rare instances, Seagal's hurt. Normally, he is just an unstoppable badass who can just throw his gun away and get in a fist fight if he chooses because he is just so cool.
Actually,
what?
Is this the first one where he like chooses to get into a fist fight instead of using guns?
I think so. I think this is where
there were several movies where like he is in a confrontation with someone with a gun. And he like tries to show off by putting his gun aside. Is this the one? Yeah, this the one with the convenience store scene where he like kneels on the ground?
No, that was actually no. That was Hard to Kill because it was the night of the Oscars.
Was it?
That's
yes, it was
he's
the night
at
of the
the
Oscars.
Convenience store. He stops the robbery. He puts the gun down. So that's where it started. Where
You're
he
right.
just
I'm
is so
sorry.
macho that he gets down on the floor and he's like, "Yeah, go ahead, point your shotgun at my face." Okay,
back to Marked for Death.
They, after all these fun shenanigans, after he consults with both a professor and also a psychic witch mystic person.
Yeah, it's called Santeria. Is the technical term for what she does.
And she tells John that Screwface's power is that he has 2 heads and 4 eyes. And it's not much of a mystery, but it ends up being a mystery to every other person in this movie.
No,
I think if you're watching, you know what's going to happen.
The instant she said that, it's like, oh, identical twin.
That's another one of them, yeah.
I said earlier when I watched it, I threw my hands up in the air. I was like, so this guy's going to have a twin brother, isn't he? And somehow everybody was surprised by it.
Well, so that's another thing that baffles me. Why was anyone surprised by that? Like, why was anyone surprised by this? Also, okay.
Because they really thought this was going to be
the undercover agent, who we haven't talked about at all, because he barely factors in the movie.
Who's been following Screwface for 5 years.
Yeah. And somehow doesn't know that he has an identical twin brother. He is the one who tells Steven Seagal, who in this movie is called John Hatcher. John Hatcher. Sounds like a John Grisham protagonist.
It really does. It's a W.E.B. Griffin knockoff.
Yeah. So the undercover agent guy tells John Hatcher that, Screwface has left the country. He's gone back to Jamaica. What? What would even be the evidence that it happened? Because there are 2 identical twin brothers, one living in Jamaica, one living in the United States, and they don't travel, so that they can appear to be in 2 places at once. That's like the whole thing.
And then at the end of the movie, they were both in the same place anyway.
Yes. Did they switch places, and so they thought that Screwface had gone back to Jamaica, and so actually the Screwface that he fought at the end of the movie back in the United States was actually one he has never met before? or was it that the one he killed in Jamaica is the one he never met before?
I don't think the movie's too concerned with it, so you shouldn't be either, because both of them just act like they are the Screwface. Like, both act like they know Seagal, and Seagal acts like he knows both of them.
Yeah. Or are they
Maybe
using like secret Jamaican magic to communicate?
Maybe it's like when they were filming with the Olsen twins on Full House,
Uh-huh.
and it's purely just that way we can get around labor laws. Like, we just always have a guy on set, and they're just completely interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever think about that?
No, I didn't actually. That,
Did
but I
you?
think that
Although
works.
it's actually really funny how Wikipedia lists this when it says Basil Wallace is Screwface. Wallace also portrays Screwface's twin brother. I see. I'm just like, you don't say. They didn't bring in a second guy. You don't say. So, speaking of, though, that actually brings us to the finishing our plot recap. So Keith David and Steven Seagal and the undercover cop go to Screwface's mansion. So they're in Jamaica. They kind of do some, their recon. They go to the mansion. I think maybe one of the funniest parts for this, of this movie for me is when you see Seagal infiltrating the mansion, and he's just dressed in all black on a white wall, just slowly and laboriously like climbing over it in like full view of the party, like the least stealthy infiltration anybody has ever seen. Like, this guy's making no effort to actually sneak in, but somehow sneaks in. After just sniping like 4 dudes with a silencer that he just kind of made in like a machine shop, like on a lathe or something.
Yeah,
I was going to get into that too.
And like metal with
pissed
a
me
piece of
off.
Perfect
aluminum.
silencer. And it's just silent. After a really, like, the scenes in these movies get more and more violent every time. After just an incredibly brutal like sword fight. Well, after a very silly sword fight that turns brutal at the end. Steven Seagal trying to use a sword is legitimately hilarious. He kills Screwface with his own sword. It comes back. They do a weird reveal where they're like, "Look, we have his sword," and the people are like, "I don't know." And then they go, "Look, we have his head," and I'm like, "Okay, we could have led with that, I guess." But wait a minute. Screwface is back with his witch magic, also known as having a twin. They fight again, and in this one,
he kicks him down an elevator shaft.
He gouges out his eyes and breaks his spine, and then throws him down an elevator shaft.
Yeah,
like,
the
kills get so brutal.
It is brutal.
But this one, it's amazing because they do all that. The gangsters kind of just like see the corpse. And that's when it ends. It's literally Seagal and company just walking off into the sunrise. And that's it.
It just ends. The whole thing with his niece being like nearly killed and in the hospital, and he threatens the doctor to give her the best care. That's not revisited.
Nope.
Why would we need to?
Never comes up
well,
again.
I mean, I would really like if we got a sequel. Her own version of Hard to Kill. She wakes up from a coma as a teenager and but then she realizes the gang's already taken care of, so she's just like, oh, and she.
And also that her uncle apparently cared about her for all of 5 seconds.
Enough to like threaten a doctor who like did not need threatened. And then she, just kind of like gets her GED or something. That's the movie.
Yeah. I also think we've talked so many in the past 2 of these about characters or actors that deserve more credit.
Excited for this.
Okay,
you kept talking about you kept talking about his like new partner who's like been tracking Screwface all these years. Tom Wright deserves so much more credit than he gets in this movie.
He legitimately pulls the best performance in this movie, I'm gonna say. Is that fair? Do we agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, he actually does a pretty good job, but other than this, he does
a very good job at making it look like his character actually believes in whatever Steven Seagal is spewing out of his mouth.
Mm-hmm. And then he would be in Barbershop and Barbershop 2 alongside Ice Cube, and then he is George Costanza's coworker in Seinfeld.
I'm gonna start with
he's still doing so much better than
I'm gonna start with slightly more obscure.
Okay.
I'm gonna start with the slightly
Tom
more
Wright.
obscure. The other actors who were like in a Steven Seagal movie and went on to do like much better things. So I would say Matt Levin, who was in Starship Troopers, played Kitten Smith in Starship Troopers.
Nice.
Okay. Kevin Dunn, who was Sam Witwicky's dad in Transformers.
Oh, actually, not gonna lie. Out of all of these, he's probably like, I remember him the best.
Yeah,
remember that
I forgot about that. You're right.
And then, with a non-speaking role
Yes.
in the
And we talked about
opening
this
scene
for
of
like
this movie,
we talked about this for like an hour already.
Danny freaking Trejo,
Yes. And like you
Machete himself.
and you go back and realize it's him, and he's just the guy getting chased by Seagal in the first like 3 minutes.
He like
That's all he is.
I need to see where in his filmography this movie lands.
That's what
Which
I'm
I have to
looking up as
scroll
well.
really far on IMDb because this man has over 400 acting credits.
So this is
Well, how
1,
many
2,
was
3,
it per
4,
year
5,
on average?
6,
You figured it out,
Like
didn't
15 movies a year.
It's absurd.
So this is his 12th movie, but admittedly, like in the movies before this, he's like some guy's bodyguard. He's like prison inmates. Like,
Yeah.
he's boxer. Like,
But he has like a non-speaking role in this movie.
and it's actually pretty great because fun fact, I can't believe this is something we didn't talk about in episode 1 or 2. We have to make amends for this. Steven Seagal does not know how to run. He does not know how to how to locomotion on his 2 legs in a speedy manner.
Well,
That
no.
is not a
He
skill
knows like the running, the legs part. He's got
The legs
down.
part's
It's
fine.
the
Okay,
arms
yeah, yeah.
part.
Legs are fine.
It's the legs
It's
are fine.
his
It's the
windmill
arms part that he
motions.
can't figure out.
Just
If they're it's so difficult to describe. The only way I can put it is what I told you the other day, is that he runs like Phoebe in Friends.
Well,
the one episode where she doesn't know how to run because he
No.
throws his arms around and his wrists go limp, so his hands like flap around.
Okay. I really think his problem is that he's an actual athlete. Have you ever seen a marathon runner run?
Probably.
Like, have you ever actually
Sure.
watched a
I
marathon
guess not that I've
runner
paid
run?
attention to.
Oh,
That's how they run.
Really?
Yes. Like,
I
it doesn't
find
look good
that
in
hard
action.
to believe.
like they've got dead fish attached to their elbows. Like that's just how they do it.
Interesting.
Like he runs like a real athlete. I think one of the big problems with Steven Seagal is that he's like actually an athlete, but he doesn't know how to take his actual athletic
And, like,
skills
look cool.
and make them look cool.
Everything you're saying, I cannot possibly believe this.
That's a theory.
I need evidence.
I don't know. Look up marathon runner running.
You're also saying that Steven Seagal is an athlete, and those words just don't
He is an
compute in my
athlete.
head.
He's like
absolutely not an athlete.
Okay, he is though.
He is
Like,
though. He's like a world
I'm not
champion
saying
in
he is like my
keto.
athlete icon. I'm not saying he is Muhammad Ali.
No.
But he was like a dude that ran a karate dojo, ran an aikido dojo, and that's how I got his start. Like,
yeah.
he's more of an athlete than he is an actor.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I cannot. That word
Like,
has
he
to be
would do-
so loose.
He would do a lot better making like aikido home fitness tapes in the 80s than he would be
Mm.
acting like starring in movies in the 80s.
But
If you
you've
have,
seen
your mom
you've
should
seen
be
the
watching.
videos of him doing these competitions. You've seen where they're choreographed. He can't actually throw people. He can't do
Not
what he shows.
anymore.
No, back when he at
Well,
the,
no,
the
so
height of his
okay, but
career,
here's
he
the
could
thing.
not.
Okay, but
the
here-
only
no, no, no,
reason
no.
he got the Hollywood deal was because
Listen.
he was presenting in front of a bunch of
Listen.
Warner Brothers executives, and it was a choreographed
You're not
event. He
wrong,
wasn't
though.
throwing people; they were
You're
throwing
not wrong, but
themselves.
listen. You're not wrong, but listen. It's because of the ego. That he is a pretty competent... Most of his background is athletics. Not that he's an amazing athlete, not that he's a beautiful one. He's a fairly competent athlete, but he has the ego that he needs to be the best at everything.
Yeah.
So he like probably could do an actual Aikido demonstration, but because he is like in charge of the dojo, his Aikido demonstration is literally effortlessly throwing everybody.
Yeah. So like.
It's that he needs to look better than he is, but he's like...
I
A
think you
guy
are giving
that's-
this man way too much credit.
Probably,
Okay, so
but-
Zach, at the beginning of this episode, you introduced this movie as Steven Seagal's sophomore entry, and I think that
his
really perfectly,
post-sophomoric entry.
yeah, his sophomoric entry, and I think that really perfectly sums up, like my idea of his career so far, that he is knowledgeable enough at certain things that he can
But he's
convince
addicted,
people
right.
that he is much more knowledgeable than he actually is.
Oh, he's definitely
Well,
an
it's one
expert
of the-
bullshitter.
Well, yeah, because it's one of those things. He has like 15% knowledge in something, but he has to have 110% knowledge in it.
Well, that's
Like,
the
he
definition
like,
of
maybe-
sophomoric. Like he,
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Well, no.
Well, it's not even that. No, it's
No?
that like he probably has like he'll have like a friend who is in like the Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
But then that story becomes I was involved in these Navy SEAls operations and got like every cross there is.
Yeah.
It could be like I run a dojo pretty competently, but then it becomes I am the greatest Aikido master in all of Japan.
He
Like,
didn't run the
has 15
dojo. He
did
worked
for a
at
while.
the he no he
No,
said
no,
he ran
his-
the dojo. His
his
wife's
father-in-law
father ran the dojo.
His father-in-law gave him the dojo. We don't actually know how much he ran it, but he was
No, his
technically-
his father-in-law ran the dojo. He did not run the dojo.
Oh.
You are giving this man way too much credit.
Sure, but also
But I want to say that that's the
Oh,
definition
he's
of
probably-
sophomoric.
he is more of an athlete. Than
You're
he is
right
a-
on that. Yes.
So
Like-
we'll cap it off there.
Yeah.
But
Back to the movie.
So back to the most important part. Steven Seagal does not know how to run the way you should in an action film as an action hero.
Yeah. No.
And where was I going with that?
He's trying to be.
He was chasing down Danny Trejo.
Oh yeah. It's funny that like Danny Trejo, he looks great in this film because
Yeah.
he's just running against Seagal. He looks like a man running versus Seagal. Like Danny Trejo is probably makes the most well off in this movie because he's just in it. His only screen time in this movie is in a foot chase with Seagal. That is like the most glowing comparison you can get.
Yeah.
So Danny Trejo starting up strong here. 12 movies into his career.
On top of he's just a great actor.
Yeah, also just a chill
off
guy.
out of the gate.
Right. Keith David. Love Keith David. He's great. Oh, what I was going to say. Maybe one of my favorite moments in this movie is that him and Keith David are just kind of like jogging together. And I love it because like this isn't just he needs to run and this is how his arms happen to move. Like it supports the theory that this is how he thinks running is. Because when they're jogging, he's just doing like a slower version of the same thing.
With
His,
the really
like,
weird limp
wrists are
wrists.
still flailing, but just like in slow motion. That's what jogging is to him.
And, you know, I am very happy that they got Keith David for the supporting role because now, like, all the dialogue between Steven Seagal and the supporting character switches between Steven Seagal's voice and Keith David's voice.
Ooh,
And so I'm just...
possibly the best voice ever.
I'm confronted with Steven Seagal's weird, stilted, bad timing at like dialogue, and then you just get Keith David to like cleanse the palate between every line.
It truly is.
And I'm like,
And this one, ooh, what
Cleanse the palate.
what race or nationality does Seagal think he is in this one? I think this one he's kind of still playing it safe. He's
his
just going,
name
like,
is John Hatcher, which is like a very English name.
right. I think
like-
he's just kind of generic Chicago dude. Like
Chicago
Yeah, he didn't
white
have
guy.
an offensive accent in this one.
No.
he brings spoiler alert. He brings it back for the next.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think he just gave it up, but no, he brings it back in the next one. But we'll talk about that
Yeah.
later.
He does. I'll
Um,
tell you what he does have though. This was the beginning. Well, I shouldn't say the beginning, but like when we watched Above the Law, like he's an older guy already. Like that's not a big deal. So his hairline's starting to recede. In Marked for Death, it is like painted black as an arrow on his
Yes.
head. Like it is the
Oh my God.
weirdest
Yes, it's amazing.
thing. And then you couple that with the extra long greasy ponytail.
Oh,
Oh
gosh.
man.
It got extra
Oh.
long in this one.
Oh, that does
Oh.
need mention. The word I thought in this movie we reached like peak ponytail. We're not quite there yet.
Mm.
We get a little more
It
ponytail
gets
soon,
worse.
But I'm pretty sure this is one. At one point, he just turns around and you see the ponytail. Like it's just the most disgusting thing I've ever seen.
It is, and there's nothing. I want to be clear. I have nothing against the like male ponytail. Like that's not a
I
big
do.
deal. His is like it's ratty and gross and greasy on screen in a movie where
I'm
they have
pretty
people to
sure-
like take care of that for you.
I can't remember. There's definitely in one of these movies it blurs together. The gal, his wife, like plays with his ponytail.
It's
and,
in
like,
Hard to
strokes
Kill.
it. It's in Hard to Kill. Oh,
Yeah.
it's the worst.
Oh,
I
it's
hate
in the
it so
first
much.
sex scene
It's
in Hard to Kill.
physically
Oh,
repulsive.
Yes.
I
gross.
swear it is. Oh, it's so
Because it is.
repulsive.
You could see that it's like greasy. It shimmers. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
So this is something we shouldn't dwell on too much because again, none of us are really experts at this. The racial elements of this film, shall we say?
They are deeply confusing because, okay, so this is another instance of a Steven Seagal film in which the overt themes of the movie are at war with the actual themes of the movie. So like
that's a really, really good way of putting it.
The stated theme of the film, as far as like racial relations and stuff go, is like not all black people. Like that's kind of like what's going on.
Like the fact that he has not just specifically like he has his good black friend Keith David, but also that they have like a man on the inside. They have a Jamaican cop who's investigating.
Well, and
like,
also,
they're not trying to say all Jamaicans are drug dealers, but like 98%.
No, there was one
are.
moment that like stuck into my brain. They're watching. There's like a newscast that's going on, and the newscaster specifically says, while it is only a very small percentage of the black population of Chicago, or African American at the time, they were using that term at the time, the African American of Chicago who is involved in these things, they do, like the particular kinds of violence that they perpetrate are like particularly heinous. So like they literally say in the text of the film, not all black people, like it's only a small percentage of people who do this. But then as you're going through the film, all but like 2 of the black people,
like
you
all
see
but
in this
every one
movie,
of his personal friends,
all but everyone who's personally attached to Steven Seagal is involved in some sort of crime.
Mm-hmm.
Like
it's really bad.
That theme continues in
commits a crime.
Out for Justice too.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just mention that the dialect of characters on screen, as written by apparently the two co-writers of the script who worked on Poltergeist and Poltergeist 2.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Yeah,
let's generously say it did not age well.
Let's just say it didn't come out. It didn't birth well, didn't age well, didn't
birth well.
Didn't do anything well. So, what would we like to say for our favorite quotes? Are the best and worst Seagal lines, or best and worst quotes in this movie? And our stars.
Honestly, for me, the worst by far, and I have to come back to this. I think Aaron, you mentioned it earlier, was when he's in this machine shop, or maybe it was Zach, doesn't matter. When he's in this machine shop and he's like, they bought all of these like black market weapons from this guy. He gives them a duffel bag. They open it up. They talk some back and forth about how they're old friends. Whatever, it doesn't matter. He gets all these black market weapons, and then they go to this just wide open machine shop and they start to like modify them for some reason. And it shows Seagal specifically, he's working at a metal lathe, like crafting his own suppressor, and then he puts it on an MP5 and starts shooting at a target, and there's no noise. Just no noise at all. And he turns to the other guys in the shop and says, "Hear how silent that is?" And it's like, really?
Well, and even before that, he puts it on the sniper and he says like, this is, when this woman, she'll just whisper in your ear, and she whispers in your ear, you're dead. And it's
that's the worst part of it
honestly,
for me, because he was just pissed me off.
It's honestly one of the more like video gamey moments, because I could just picture this in like the Steven Seagal video game that just mashes all of his movies together into one plot. Like, and this game is only an hour and a half long because that's all I can stand. Like you literally just go to a crafting bench and you put in like 4 supplies, 4 resource, and you just get silencer. Like it just feels like that's what happens.
Yeah. And I should correct myself. I said silencer. It's not a silencer. It's a suppressor.
No,
but in Steven Seagal's universe, it's a silencer.
Oh yeah, it is silent. And your stars.
Oh, so I gave this one 1.5 stars. Took it down a notch from the other 2, the first 2 that were both 2 stars. This one irritated me. First of all, because there's like a solid 3 minutes in the opening scene of him chasing Danny Trejo running like a complete idiot. Not a single bullet hits its target aside from his 2 partner deaths in this one, both completely preventable. They chase. There's a chase scene where Seagal and I just said his name, Tom Wright. No, not Tom. No, it was Keith. Who was the other guy?
What, Keith David?
Keith David. Yeah. He and Keith David are chasing down the baddies in the city, and they're in a big SUV, and they just start like driving through, like they racing around traffic, causing accidents. They drive through the window of the jewelry store, was it? And there's just this big shootout in the jewelry store, and then nothing happens. Like
glass
complete
flying everywhere.
Yeah, and they start smashing up jewelry cases and like throwing
Yep.
shit at each other,
They're just,
and
like,
there's just
firing
no repercussions
buckshot
for that.
randomly.
Yeah,
Yep,
it was
that's
ridiculous. So yeah, I gave that one 1.5 stars.
Nice. For me, the only reason I actually have a quote from this one is because for my Letterboxd review, I was doing like a live react basically just as I watched, so I actually have like more notes to refer back to in this one. I think unintentionally one of the funniest ones is when he's talking to, I believe, his mom on the phone, and she says, "Everything all right? You sounded strange on the phone." And I'm just like, lady, he sounds strange all the time. Like, you just gotta get used to it. Like, he talked to her on the phone, like, I'm coming home for dinner. And said it all weird with an odd pacing. But my favorite, worst Seagal line is when Jimmy Fingers, pause for laughter, when Jimmy Fingers says, "I'm a made man," Seagal shoots him dead and then says, "God made men."
I remember.
Because I don't know who thought that was cool, but they very clearly thought that was
They
cool.
very clearly thought that was really
God
cool.
made men. Like, oh, you told him. It's right up there with Blood Bank.
Who played Jimmy Fingers?
Who did play Jimmy
I think
Tony
John Hatch-
DiBenedetto.
I think John Hatcher played Jimmy Fingers.
Oh boy.
Did he deserve better? Did he go on to do anything? Or
Everyone in this movie deserved better.
The last thing he was in 1999. Is he still alive?
Wow, he got out.
Dang, good for him. So another thing in this movie I was actually legitimately kind of upset by. It seemed like they were setting up the professor that he meets with as like she's love interest girl in
Okay,
this one.
I was honestly surprised that they did not sleep together.
Like that
Like, I
seemed
didn't
like
want
that's
it
what they're
to
setting up,
happen,
and
but I was
honestly,
just-
like
They absolutely would have had the movie not just
Right.
like petered out at the end and
it just
not
did
really
two
ended.
final boss fights.
Like the first time that you see her, she like turns. She's like blonde. She's pretty. She turns like it's dark outside, but she has like a light shining directly on her. She's doing like some science crap. It's a 1990s film.
She's doing some weird science.
Yeah, so she turns to face directly into the camera because you're looking from the perspective of John Hatcher, Steven Seagal, and you're like, oh, okay, by the end of this movie they're going to sleep together. That was my thought, and I was just waiting for that scene. I didn't want it to happen. It was gross.
Well,
I
so
didn't want that to happen, but I was waiting for it to happen, and it just never did, and the movie ended, and I'm like, well, I didn't want it to happen, but I'm also disappointed that it didn't because,
right.
like, all of the text of filmmaking tells me that that's going to happen, and then it just doesn't.
Well, and it's not even that. It's also like I also didn't want it to happen.
Yeah.
But so far, she like while I was watching, I'm thinking like, oh, she's the best. She's my favorite of like the Seagal love interests.
Yes.
Like I'm not saying they have this like Oscar-winning chemistry between the two
No.
of them, but it was like the closest to that. It wasn't just he's unconscious and I'm in love with his large penis. And the day after his wife died, as far as he can remember,
Yeah.
we were sleeping together. Like they actually kind of had like a rapport, and she was like actually somewhat decently like written. She had a couple like
Did
good
something
lines.
for the plot.
And so I was like, oh, this is actually like the only kind of love interest I can halfway tolerate so far. And then she wasn't even a love interest. So
Nope,
make it
and
that way you will.
Seagal's character has no interest in her. She has proven herself useful to the plot, and therefore does not matter.
Yeah, that's not how he likes his women. He doesn't like his women useful and autonomous. So
No, and we will get into that in the next movie.
So Marked for Death, 1.5 stars.
I gave Marked for Death 1 star. I've
Nice.
been mean to these movies.
You were way too nice.
Rightfully
right
so.
after
I
this,
was
and then
way
you
too
just
nice to above the
self-corrected.
law.
You're averaging it out, I think.
Yeah. I gave Marked for
Because you
Death.
thought, oh, this is kind of fun, and then he said it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, I gave Marked for Death 1 star. And I think my favorite quote was right after he kills Jimmy Fingers.
Possible laughter.
And there was also like one of the posse hiding in the bathroom the whole time. What was he doing there? But
Forgot
like
about
hiding
that.
in the bathroom the whole time, and then he like pops out after everything has already gone down. He pops out and like John Hatcher kind of captures him and tries to interrogate him, and then jumps out the window. So he goes downstairs, and he talks to his cop buddy, and the cop buddy like asked him what happened, and he said there were two guys there. One thought he was invincible, the other thought he could fly. They were both wrong.
Yes.
I forgot about that.
And I loved
was
that.
pretty
That
good.
was great.
Don't lie. Yeah, that was pretty bad. Good. I liked it.
Yeah.
All right. Any closing thoughts?
Don't watch
Terrible
this
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you don't have to. The funniest part is that there's a character named Jimmy Fingers, and like nothing else of value was
Yeah.
gained or lost.
Actually, my Letterboxd review literally says you do not have to watch this. You're welcome.
Yeah. There's
After I gave like my live react, I actually did a live react for this one. And at the end, I just
Same
said,
as Zach.
you don't have to watch it anymore.
there
You're good.
were
You're free.
there's only like 40 other better Keith David movies you can watch, and there's only like 400 better Danny Trejo movies that you could
Yes.
watch. So this one's a skip.
Yeah, this one's a hard pass. You can just skip
You're
this
welcome.
one.
All right.
I think we can end it
We'll
on
see
that.
y'all
You're
next
welcome.
Yep.
That means one of us has to die. Don't mention it, brother.